Okay, I've just watched the movie for the first time on the big screen, all put together. Just finished my popcorn off. It's an hour and 33 minutes long, plus the addition I'm putting on here in the end. I hope you enjoy it. Understand, I didn't have a lot of resources to do this. I wasn't able to hire actors or actresses or put a stage together or get a band to play some music. You know, I had a big tub of photos here, probably got 3,000 photos. I scanned 500 of them in. Did a lot of typing, a lot of rewriting, and a lot of it, as you'll be able to see, is done on the fly. So my resources are, a $325 computer that doesn't work, so I have to use the other keyboard. I got a scanner, and this is my assistant to take pictures of my old atlas. These are my resources. Oh, of course, Jose. Jose, he helps me out a lot. So when you watch this film, it's not a film, whatever it is, get relaxed, clear your head, grab a drink. It's not a very visual presentation. It's a lot of Johnny doing this. So sit back, relax. For me, it's easy because all the scenes I have in my head, they're memories I have. So it's a little bit, when I watch, they're like, that's not bad. But I'm asking you, maybe sometimes you're going to have to close your eyes and just put yourself in, where was Colleen's state of mind when this was going on? I did the best I could with the budget I have and the resources I have. The sound quality, okay? You can see what I have for a acoustic room here. It's not very good. So I'm sorry. Sometimes the sound's going to go up, sometimes it's going to go down. Sometimes my gardener's outside with my wood chipper making noise, so I got to go to the beach. When I'm at the beach, I don't realize there's so much wind noise going by. But I had a little help from Jose doing it. There's no script when I'm out there, so it's hard for me to duplicate some of that again. So you got to listen to it. Be quiet, listen hard, because there's a little bit of wind noise. Don't be complaining, I can't hear it, there's too much wind noise. Just be quiet and listen. It'll be okay. I hope. Okay, I hope my narration of the film doesn't confuse you too much, because sometimes I talk as if I'm Colleen because it's her story. Sometimes I talk as if it's Johnny because I'm doing the talking, so sometimes I slip into it's me talking, and then sometimes I talk like in this third person, like it's the narrator talking. So don't get too confused. You'll be okay. Okay, I'm going to give you other little heads up. A couple of these two scenes I'm going to tell you about, don't go to the bathroom for them. Pay attention. One is when Colleen's in the ICU for the first time, after her first stroke. There's a tearjerker moment in there for me and Colleen. If I made you cry, I did my job well. If not, well, maybe you just don't have tears in your eyes, or I didn't say it well enough. We'll blame it on me. I did a bad job of presenting it. The other time is with Alice. With Alice, it's a little bit harder to have a tearjerker moment then. You really have to be Colleen or be in Colleen's shoes. But Alice, the way she communicated a story to Colleen on her hands and knees in Chinese, it made Colleen very appreciative. Those are happy tears, that somebody really acknowledged her. Other scenes, there's a couple more. Find them on your own. Bye. Colleen seems to have had a normal childhood, just the normal brother and sister shenanigans and trickery, like the black plastic spider in her milk glass. Thanks, Chris. However, when Colleen was about 10 years old, she was very ill. She was diagnosed as having strep throat, and the doctors treated her for the strep throat. This also cured her symptoms for the other disease that went undiagnosed. She also had rheumatic fever, so all her symptoms were cured and everybody thought she was okay. However, the hidden ramifications of not diagnosing her rheumatic fever will show up 20 years later. One of Colleen's favorite vacations as a child was when they rented a houseboat on the Mississippi River. Not sure who all went on that trip, but Colleen had so much fun that we had to take the same trip with our family and with Teresa, Adam, Kelsey, and Morgan. Colleen's high school years seemed to be normal as well. Normal is a relative term when you grow up in Wisconsin as part of the Delighten clan and have the Shavers and Betzells for neighbors. She did go out for synchronized swim her freshman year, women's ensemble her sophomore year, and gymnastics her junior. For all 4 years, she was in the color guard, part of the band. She really seemed to enjoy that, traveling with the band to Wyoming and other places. Colleen's grades were all really good as well. All A's and B's except for 1 C in typing. Colleen was working with these ladies. My understanding is the girls did all the work and the doc would come around and check the work. If something needed to be corrected, they would just correct it and the doctor needed to reapprove. The doc was very good to them, taking them to many conferences, places like New Orleans, Vegas, Palm Springs. Anyways, while Colleen was working in this office building, across the hallway was Mold Design Specialties, where Johnny and this crew were working. Joe Lapine was the owner, and one night just before Christmas, this is back in 1979, when it was customary for tool and die businesses to have a Christmas party, ours was in 2 days, and Joe asked Johnny, "Do you want to stay tonight and let's inspect the booze and make sure everything's okay?" This was not unusual. We would stop at the bar semi-regularly. Johnny had to say, "Sure, I'll stay." Unknown to both John and Colleen, Joe knew Colleen was working late at Dr. Stengel's by herself, refinishing some furniture. So when Colleen went out to the common hall area, Joe made sure our door was open, and Joe invites Colleen in. She says no, but Joe sweet talks her in. She says she's not finished with her project, so she has to go back into her office. Joe starts working Johnny over, saying I should ask her out. Johnny is like, no, she's too cute and probably has a boyfriend. 20 minutes later, Colleen comes back in the hallway. Joe gets her to come in for a drink. This was not too hard. She has all that Delighten blood in her. Later, when Colleen goes to the bathroom, Joe works Johnny over some more. When she comes back, somehow we end up going out for dinner. We went to a place where my brother worked, Steve, and he's the chef, and we ordered some ribs, and we just get a ton of ribs. Joe's plan is executed perfectly. Johnny also asked her out for New Year's Eve that night. We go to St. Lawrence, to the Hustle Inn, where the Windriffs are playing. They are some friends of Johnny's. This is Colleen's first exposure to the Hartford culture. Anyway, at midnight, we have our first kiss. It took a couple of months, but then there was no going back. Another little side story. While Colleen was working at the docks, she goes to lunch to Mickey D's, and while eating, she looks over in the car lot next door and sees this car and ends up bringing it home. This is just before John and Colleen met. Colleen and her high school friend, Shirley, take the Triumph to Florida for a little vacay. Okay, I have to make this correction. Earlier I said, I'm not sure exactly how Colleen and I ended up going out on our first date. But it's come back to me now, and after Colleen came in, after a couple of drinks, Joe says to Colleen, have you had anything to eat today? She says, no, I haven't had anything to eat. Joe looks at Johnny and says, well, neither has Johnny. The two of you should go out for dinner. So we ended up going out. Joe was quite the wingman, and I didn't even know it. Okay, the camera seems to cut out after like 2 minutes, so I got 2 minutes to tell the story. This story is about Colleen and I and the proposal. And I've been dating Colleen for a year and a half. It's the summer of '81. We've looked at rings. We've talked about marriage. I've asked Jen's permission. That's Colleen's mom. She says yes. So I picked Colleen up one day in this car. I hope it's the right side up. Looks like it's upside down. I pick her up in my '65 Mustang. There's not much photos to go with the story, so I just thought I'd throw it in here. So I pick her up. She gets in the car. Hi, how you doing? La la la. And then, wham, the lambasting starts. So what's going on? Are we getting married or what? Whoa, 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 Johnny's thinking. And then she says, if you don't want to get married, that's fine. Just tell me. I'll find someone else. It's really kind of scared me a little bit. The ring is in my pocket. And the lambasting continues. I don't know what's going on. Finally, I break down. Dig in my pocket. It's a Mustang. There's not a lot of room. I dig this ring out. I kind of gently toss it at her and say, hey, is this what you want? Will you marry me? Calm down a little bit. Things got to be a little bit more social. 20 minutes later, we get where we were going. She makes me get down on my knee and ask her like a real man would do it. Yeah. So I get down, I ask her, but I tell her there's 2 conditions to this proposal. Number 1, my great-grandfather who came over on the boat from Germany 6 generations before all these other Hans, his name, I wanted to name our firstborn son after. Colleen's like, yeah, whatever. What was his name? I'd just say. So, it's Bartholomew. Like, I even spell that. Like, don't worry, we'll figure it out. And I said, there's a second condition. But the first condition never came through. Bridget, we never had a son, so she kind of got out of that one. But she was backing out, because we never knew what the sex was before they were born. And Bridget was a compromise on the boy's name, on a girl's name, because it started with BR. Okay, so it started with B. And the second condition, that never came true either. And I've totally erased it from my mind because it never happened. It wasn't going to happen. It wasn't a good memory knowing that it wasn't going to happen. So I totally forgot what it was, but it didn't happen. And there, I knew from that point on, my manhood was going. And in fact, it probably was gone. It probably was never going to come back. Bye-bye for now. We'll tell you another story soon. Okay, the wedding. The wedding was a year and a half later after we got started dating. It was the middle of '81. We were looking for a hall. It's like 2 years before she can get into La Vista. That's the hall she wanted. as in her hometown of Grafton. Her mom knew everybody that worked there. A lot of weddings were there, but it's booked up for like 2 years. As you can tell by the last proposal, Colleen really wasn't interested in waiting a long time. So there was one date open, the day after Christmas in '81. So we take that. Quick haul, boom, boom, we'll get this over. The Windruffs played that night. We got married at St. Joseph's Church. It was early in the afternoon, like 1 or 2. Dinner wasn't until 5:30 or 6. So, Hartford tradition, we kind of all went out bar hopping all afternoon. Kind of lost track of time, almost missed the dinner. Jen was a little bit frustrated with me, like you couldn't have got here an hour or half hour earlier. I'm like, we're here, let's have a good time. The Windruffs played, things were going good. I got a lot of pictures for this, I'll punch in here. But the Windruffs played. Towards the end of the night, Johnny decides this monkey suit gotta go. Johnny goes out to the car, puts on his best pair of bibs, comes back in. This is at La Vista Ballroom. It had a public bar, but Saturdays it was usually closed. But there's a bouncer. He says, "Sir, I'm sorry, you can't come in. It's a private party tonight." I'm like, "Hey, I understand. I'm the groom." The guy goes, "Yeah, you're the groom," and I'm like Pinocchio. I'm sorry, we're not open to the public tonight. I'm like, oh, but the bar's not far away. And there's Jen, Colleen's mom. Jen, can you tell this guy I'm the groom and I want to come in? She kind of looks at me, looks at him, puts her head down. Yeah, he's the groom. Let him in. So it was a good night, that's for sure. A lot of fun. I'll show some pictures. Maybe I'll have a gap, show a slide. But that was that. Okay, as long as we're out here, and Jose's still with me a little bit, we're going to tell you about the honeymoon and all the good parts, but enough of the story of the honeymoon. We go to, it's like just after Christmas, we go to Marquette, Michigan skiing. Johnny's on the cheap. We get in the car, I can take you up there. Okay, we'll treat you to the nice Holiday Inn. This is on the shore of Lake Superior, where it never gets warm. So we're skiing, Cliffs Ridge, having somewhat of a great time. The Holiday Inn, the pool was closed because the lumberjackers had it for practice. They had logs in there, and they were practicing their log jack championship stuff. So we couldn't even use the pool. We could go in and watch them. We watched them a lot, but we weren't allowed in the pool. So we get back to Wisconsin, and Colleen's like, "Dude, you owe me a real honeymoon. None of this cheap ass, we're going up north skiing for a couple of days." So she says, we should go to Cozumel. At that time, Cozumel was a relatively new place. So we go there in March. It was a lot of fun. Had a good time. Colleen was much happier in the warmth. Should have known then the girl liked warm. Yeah, look at where she took me. Should have known then. Like I said earlier, you know where my manhood was. It's disappeared. Or at least it's gone. I don't know. That was our honeymoon. Next chapter. Yeah, there's a little time before the kids are born, but it won't be long. Yeah, a little side story. While we're in Cozumel, we decide to go snorkeling one day. So Johnny becomes good buddies with the captain and Jose. After a while, the crew wouldn't let Johnny go snorkeling anymore because he had a little bit too much quality time with Jose. As long with the captain, the crew wouldn't let the captain drive anymore either. But we made it back. Colleen had to drive some of the time because the crew wasn't that big. Talk to you later. Bye. Okay, I think I might have thrown Colleen a little bit under the bus on that proposal story. So I just want to make a few little clarifications or try to get Colleen out from under the bus a little bit. I think what must have happened is Jen must have told her that I've asked her permission. And, like a week or went by, or maybe it was 10 days, I don't know. I wasn't in a big rush, but Jen must have told her, he's going to ask you. And since I hadn't asked her, she's like, bam, I'm giving it to him. I'm going to do it now. So that's what I think happened. And I did want to go back and say the second condition to the proposal. After all these years, I sucked it out. I do remember what it was. Back in those days, I had worked on an electrical apprenticeship, and now I was on my tool and die design apprenticeship, or I finished it, and I could basically go anywhere in the industrial world and get a job. And that was my second condition, that she'd have to follow me to wherever. And so she did live up to that second one, and I wasn't giving her credit for it because we went all the way to China together. So you'll hear about that in the end too. So see, I had to get her out from under the bus. I could throw Jen under the bus, but I'm not gonna. Okay, on to life before the kids. We did normal things: camping, fishing. Colleen enjoyed cross-country skiing, downhill skiing, occasional brewer game. Here's a picture with her and a young Robin Yount. Another picture with Charlie Moore and Billy Martin, who was coach of the Oakland Athletics. He was in the dugout. I seen him walk by. I says, "Hey, Billy, you take a picture with my wife?" He looks at Colleen and says, "Is that your wife?" "Yeah, I'll take a picture with her." He comes out of the dugout. Billy Martin, world champion, 5-time coach of the New York Yankees. summer of 1988, we're cruising along thinking everything's normal and fine, and we're almost the poster child for what a normal family is. And Colleen she wanted to go to the doctor. She wasn't feeling, she was getting tired all the time, and she shouldn't have been tired. So we go to the doctor. Doctor gives her physical, says, "Lady, I can't find anything wrong with you. You should be fine." He says, "Just quit smoking." We come home. I didn't know what to say or do. We just keep going on. But then, like 4 months later, in April the 24th of '89, I come home from work. Kids aren't there. Colleen says, "I wasn't feeling good today," and Kelly stopped by with Alex, and Kelly took the girls, and she's going to bring them back later tonight. That day also, the Swan guy stopped in and delivered ice cream and frozen fish to us. We've never done that before, but we had supper. We're watching TV. We're eating some of this ice cream. Colleen's laying on the couch, and I think we're probably watching PBS. And Colleen was making inappropriate noises, just kind of laying there. She wasn't laughing. There was nothing funny on TV to laugh at. So I said, "Are you all right?" She doesn't really answer. She keeps, making some noise. So I go over to her. She's not responding visually to me. So I go to the kitchen. This is when a phone was still on the wall. It's got this cord on it that's like 30 feet long. I says, "If you don't give me an answer, I'm going to call the emergency squad right now." No response. So I call them up. They're on their way. They tell me to put the dog in the garage. I call my pa. He's coming out. Emergency squad gets there. They're doing a little interrogation on me of what, this is not normal, Mr. Hahn. We're not quite sure. They asked me a lot of questions about, they seem to think that birth control pills cause strokes in that age of woman. And I'm like, well, she's not taking any right now. And, there was no medications in the house, maybe some aspirin. They go through the medicine cabinets. There's nothing there. So they pack Colleen up in the bus. They take her to the Hartford Memorial Hospital. Emergency room. Colleen's just got a bed. And they put the flashlight in her eyes. And I could see this, and it was like, yeah, her lights are on, but there's nobody home, man. I got to sit down. I'm sitting down, and I don't know what's going on. Next thing you know, bloop, boom, Johnny's bouncing off the floor. I wake up in the bed next to Colleen, and I'm getting my droggy out of me. I'm waking up, and I'm going like, it must have been that Swan's ice cream. And they're like, two doctors look at each other like, we don't know what you're talking about. He says, "Oh, we got Swan's ice cream today for the first time. They delivered it to our house." I go, that's what it must be. The two doctors, they're a nurse and a doctor, they look at each other like, "No, Mr. Hahn, that might be what's wrong with you, but your wife has got more serious problems." More serious than they really wanted to deal with there at Hartford. So they were going to transfer her to Freighted Hospital. They called Flight for Life to come and get her, and both of the helicopters were busy, so they pack Colleen in the bus, and they take her. My dad drives me down there. We get there. We get greeted by the staff that are in the emergency room. The helicopter pilots actually come and greet me. They actually take us into where the ambulance was parked, the garage it was in, and a couple doctors and Flight for Life people are interrogating me. They're like saying, "Well, we see here you had 2 children, Mr. Hahn. And I says, yeah, we got 2 kids. And they're like, you mean you had 2 kids from a previous marriage? And I'm like, no, you were right the first time. We had 2 kids. And they're like, well, she didn't have these kids. You must have adopted these kids. And I'm like, no, she had she gave birth to these 2 kids. And they said, didn't you have any problems or any issues? And I said, well, Rachel, our oldest, Colleen was on bed rest with her for 2 months. No one really, Colleen was struggling with just health conditions. Nothing we knew, anything to attribute anything to other than, it was a hard pregnancy or something. So they kind of looked at each other and go like, well, let's not say nothing to him or anything, and let's just go on with taking care of his wife. So they get Colleen up. She's been diagnosed with a stroke now, that there was a clot in her brain, and not quite sure how it got there yet at this point. But they move her up to NICU or CICU, but we're in a very serious looking place. Colleen's got tubes up her nose, mask over her mouth. She's got needles going into her arms and into her hands, and it's a pretty scary place. And after like 5 days, I pulled the doctors aside, and I said, well, my wife needs to see our 2 kids. And they're like, no, your kids are too little. We don't let anybody under 10 in here. And I'm like, well, my wife needs to see my kids. My kids need to see my wife. If you're not going to let my kids in here, then that's your rule. Then let's move her out. Let's move her out to the hall for a couple minutes. And they're like, whoa, it's just not going to happen, Johnny. But I badgered them for a little bit. They badgered me back. Finally, they said, you can bring your kids in. It's not like we had a private room. That there's not even like curtains between it. Everybody's pretty messed up in this room. So I tell the girls, you can come in and see your mom for a short period of time, but she's going to be scary, and the doctors really don't want you in here. But kids said they could suck it up and wouldn't be a disturbance. And so I bring the kids in, and if you can imagine from Colleen's eyes, she doesn't know where she's at. She's been in and out of a coma. She doesn't know if I've taken her to the moon or what's going on. But I bring the kids in. Colleen, who hasn't said boo to me in 5 days, sees the kids, hasn't moved a muscle. Rachel's on one side of the bed, Bridget's on the other side of the bed. They're climbing up to see their mom. Somehow, Colleen musters up strength, hugs them, and through the mask on her face, I don't know, they might have removed the mask when the kids came in, she says, I love you, to them. And it was a pretty tear-jerker moment for us all, for the staff, for everybody in the building. So we got the kids out of there, but Colleen's brain is still swelling, and they're concerned that the swelling's going to go down her spine and choke off her spine. For some, days go on. This is at Freighter. It's a Trauma 1 hospital. They decide, to let one of the apprentice doctors, poke Colleen's, I don't know, they're looking for a vein or whatever they're sticking her with, but he misses whatever he's looking for, and he pops Colleen's lung. And now there's more complications. So I've been there all the time. I kind of know what's going on with everything. They've taken me to see X-rays and scans, and I'm just doing the best I can. But I did call the main doctor in charge, and I says, "Hey, this is my wife. I've got 2 kids at home. If you can't give me the best doctors with the best care for her, let me know, because I got to take her somewhere else. I understand these young doctors need to learn." I said, let them learn on somebody else. Find some 70-year-old. But I says, my wife can't have another hiccup like this. And if you can't accommodate giving me your best doctors, fine. We'll go somewhere else. So we saw the big doctors worked on her pretty much all the time after that. Colleen did spend 10 days there before we moved up to a regular floor. After being there a little over a month, I think on 5/27, we finally moved out of that hospital and we went to St. Luke's Rehabilitation Hospital. I went around and looked at all the hospitals, rehab facilities. St. Luke's was by far the best. So we moved there. I think we were there for like 2 months. Little story on the side. I'm working at Allen Bradley at the time. Allen Bradley's self-insured with, I think the name of the organization was Prime Care. So they're all concerned about the bills Johnny and Colleen have been racking up. So I have a little meeting with them. They call me in to say, so the vice president of Allen Bradley's HR, and then a vice president from Prime Care. We have a little meeting. Everybody's got their suits and ties on, and they explain to Johnny, here's what's going to happen, that we're going to give your wife like 60 more days of treatment. And they were giving themselves pats on the back, how good of an organization they both were, and they're going to work this out for me. And after they were done with their presentation to me and kind of sitting there tight-lipped just listening, then they asked me, what do you think about the deal we just gave you? And I took a deep breath and I told them, I think what you're doing to my wife is criminal. Oh, that's not what I said. I think what you're doing to my wife is fucking criminal. And I drop an F-bomb. And I says, you're getting her healthy, you're getting her back up, you're taking her out to the street, you're getting her ready to cross the street, and then now you're just throwing her right in front of the bus. I go, from what I understand, my wife's going to need a lot of help, a lot of therapy. And after I dropped the F-bomb, well, all of a sudden the suits all started saying the F-bomb. Well, it's not that effing bad, and we're doing the effing best we can. You're really only entitled to this. I just want to back up a little bit and make sure you understand the problem that Colleen had, and that was her heart valve. And it's the rheumatic fever when she was 8 that these heart valves I'm going to show you here, when they open and close, these are new mechanical valves. This is what Colleen had put inside of her. But her original one, when she was 10, it didn't function properly. When she was 10, it was okay. But the rheumatic fever takes 20 years for it to deteriorate enough so this valve, when it opens and closes, doesn't seal properly. Somehow there's gaps there, and this is where the blood clots. And these clots, then all of a sudden they decide to break loose because they're one-way valves and there's blood flowing through them. They'll build up a little bit and then they'll fling off. And you can see here with these valves, and then once you get a mechanical valve like this, you have to go on Coumadin, a blood thinner, so that these clots don't form on this mechanical valve. So we were checking her Coumadin all the time. And if you didn't get it by now, she really had, at this point, 3 opportunities good opportunities where the doctor should have found it. One when she was a kid, 10 years old and really sick. The second one was when Rachel was on bed rest. Somebody should have heard this then. And the third one was we went to the doctor 4 to 6 months before this all happened. Granted, it's hard to hear this when your heart goes swish, 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 swish. Colleen's heart was going swish, swash, swish, swash. Something a little different than normal. This different type of noise that a bad valve makes is, I believe, why when I arrived at Freighter and talked to the ER people, that they interrogated me so much about Colleen not having kids, because they're like, the valve makes such a different noise that a doctor should have been able to catch this, I believe. After Colleen's stroke, originally she cannot walk or talk. She works very hard, and by the time she leaves the rehab hospital, she no longer needs a wheelchair. She continues with therapy at the local hospital as an outpatient. She is not happy with her condition, though, and works very hard to keep improving. Her right arm does not work, and she has to learn to write right-handed. Use of her right hand never comes back. Her right leg works at the hip, but not fully at the knee and the ankle. Her leg will support her weight, and she learns how to walk by swinging her hip out a little bit to get her foot off the ground. And her gait after this, it looks a little awkward, but she can get around. And her right side is mostly numb. For the first 6 months are rough, but in the summer of 1990, she gets her driver's license back. She is super happy as we live out in the country. And now she can take the girls places as well as herself to therapy and whatever else she wants to go to. Our lives get back to a new but very different normal. It takes years, but Colleen starts riding a special bicycle that has an automatic gear shifting system. She grabs her right hand with her left hand and places it on her right handlebar. Her right hand would stay clasped onto the handlebar, and she would take off riding. She would ride for miles. She'd come back a couple hours later, all full of sweat. Johnny wasn't very excited about this, as her right side is paralyzed. She could have tipped over at any time. We're out in the country. Milk truck could have went by and just tipped her over. She also tries rollerblading, but she figures out that might be too dangerous. After Colleen's stroke, she's also diagnosed with aphasia. This is a condition that makes it hard to start speaking her words. She knows what she wants to say, but the words just won't come out. She goes to the University of Michigan for 6 weeks. This is in the beginning of November in '96. So Johnny and the girls are on their own. Colleen really enjoys learning these new techniques to help her with her speech. I think she also enjoyed using the gym and relating to people that are going through the same struggle that she is. The right side of her face is also paralyzed, and she needs to work very hard to get her smile even on both sides. So every picture you see from now on, you look at her smile, and you'll see, that it's not even. But she's worked very hard to get it very close to even. Colleen's determination to get back to some sort of normal has her doing as much as we and she can. Once we go horseback riding, Johnny is in the lead, then Rachel, Bridget, and Colleen is bringing up the rear. Rachel proclaims, "Mom has fallen off the horse." Johnny tells her that is not funny and don't say anything like that again. Rachel proclaims one more time, "She is off her horse." Johnny turns around to see Colleen's horse turned around, going in the other direction, with Colleen's foot stuck in the stirrup, and she's being dragged on the ground. She gets dragged at least 100 yards. Somehow we get an emergency ambulance back there, and it's another trip to the ER. And her lack of feelings on her right side lead to a very thorough examination. Colleen's saying she's okay, but the examination proved, yes, she was okay. She's a tough girl. Colleen would pick up the kids from school. Sometimes she would get there early and go for a walk. Because of her unusual gait and her limping, she gets reported to the police as a possible drunk. The cops stop her, and she has problems with explaining her situation because of her speech aphasia. Cops are, oh, walks like a drunk, sounds like a drunk. The interrogation gets a little bit further. They finally figure it out, and they let her go, and are kind of sorry. This not only happens to her once, but twice. One time, a friend of ours who was an officer, he stopped in and apologized. Because Colleen only has one good arm, it's hard to stir anything in a pan. If something's thick in there, you really can't stir it with just one hand. The pan slides around. So Colleen, she finds these super heavy stainless steel copper clad pans from France. They are very expensive, so Johnny on the cheap is not very happy. But when he sees how well they work for Colleen and how much happiness it brings her, he's okay with it. He's happy. He's super happy. One afternoon, after arriving home from work, Colleen informs Johnny that we are now going to be vegetarians and we must only eat organic food. Johnny has no clue of what this means or what is going on, but he gets used to eating couscous and rice pilaf and whatever. Colleen now has to drive to the east side of Milwaukee to do organic grocery shopping. This is an hour away. Johnny's not pleased as she has to drive through the hood of Milwaukee to get to the fashionable east side where this organic grocery store is. This is the day before mobile phones, so if she has any problem breaking down on the side of the road. Colleen is very interested in alternative medicine and holistic treatment. She buys a lot of books, does a lot of reading. She goes to acupuncture, to chiropractor, starts meditating, finds a yoga class at her local hospital. Johnny's never even heard of yoga 25 years ago. She's also going to Reiki classes, dragging Johnny with him. He never heard of that 25 years ago either. She buys these Aurora glasses and to help see chakra points better. If anybody wants to try them out, I still have them. Let me know. She starts taking these long baths with candles. Finally, this leads her to a hot tub purchase. Colleen really loved the hot tub. She would use it every day, rain, shine, or snow. And finally, Johnny was getting something he could relate to. Colleen also starts other hobbies. She's doing paintings. She's got some real nice looking paintings. She does some flower gardening. She's just driven to just keep doing whatever she can to improve. And I think she gets all of her strength from the kids, because the kids are just motivating her to do better and better. Colleen enjoys accompanying Johnny on business trips to Hong Kong, Germany, Italy, and her new favorite country, Switzerland. Why? I'm not going to go into it. It's too long a story for now. She also enjoys traveling on many family vacations to the Czech Republic, California, the Virgin Islands, many smaller trips close to home, several trips to Florida. Colleen also enjoyed remodeling the house. We remodeled the house, and Colleen's input was the main driving force. She wanted open concept, and she wanted to see the front door and the TV from the kitchen. All of these were things that she had wanted and put into it. The granite tops. The whole thing was Colleen's idea. Another little story. once when Colleen was frustrated. Johnny tells her, "It could be worse. At least we still have each other and we still love each other." Colleen kind of rolls her eyes, looks over at me, and explains that if she had the choice to either keep Johnny or have her old health back, Johnny was going to be long gone.
It's 673-9127. We'll get back to you. Bye. It's 673-9127. We'll get back to you. Bye.
From Colleen's point of view, cleaning her glasses, one hand, was always a little bit of a problem. So this new operation comes out called LASIK. Colleen gets on that bus, let's go get this done. Johnny goes with her. We get to the doctor's office. They take Colleen in the back. Johnny's a little antsy because Johnny normally gets to go, edges his way into the back to see what's going on, to help Colleen out. Johnny's then waiting in the waiting room. All of a sudden the nurse comes out, "Hey, can you come on in here? Your wife's a little anxious. Can you calm her down?" I'm like, "Cool. It's just what I wanted to do anyways." So I get in there. I'm standing over Colleen. She's laying on this flat table. And there's this laser beam going at her eye. Johnny, all of a sudden, he's like, "Whoa, I've felt this feeling before. I think I know what's going to happen. I've already told you once in this story much earlier how all of a sudden Johnny goes, woo, boom. But he starts running this time to get away from it, to get out of there, thinking it's going to make him safer. He ends up banging his head, breaking his glasses, passing out on some desk corner. Meanwhile, Colleen's laying on the table. She's just laughing. She knows what happened. And next day, the doctor calls up, and I go, "Oh, Colleen's fine. Everything's cool." "Oh, Mr. Hahn, we're not calling to check on your wife. We know our work was good, and she'll be fine. We're wondering how you and your head are doing." At this point in time, Colleen is the poster child for what hard work and therapy can do for you. She was actually on the local news one night. And then on September 16th, 1999, Johnny leaves for an around-the-world business trip. First a stop in Germany, then on to Japan, and then hopefully a vacation stop in Guam for some scuba diving. Colleen is now 41, Rachel is 15, Bridget is 14. September 25th, this is the last picture of Colleen standing. Hours later, while at her cousin's wedding, Colleen has her second stroke. Johnny is in Japan. He gets a panic call from Rachel. Johnny needs to call the hospital. He has to call them back a second time to get some clarification. This time, he asks, "Are you telling me that you are going to unplug her when I get back and that she probably won't survive?" The reply is, "We cannot tell you that over the phone. Please get back as soon as you can." Johnny spends a lot of teary-eyed time in the Tokyo airport, and it's a long ride home for Johnny. When he gets back to Milwaukee, goes right to the hospital, spends a little time with Colleen, and grabs the kids and gets a small room and tells them that the doctors and the nurses are going to unplug Mom, and she probably won't survive. Bridget is insistent that Mom is strong and she's going to make it and that she's seen it in Mom. 20 minutes later, the doctors come in and tell us she's probably going to make it, that she's unbelievably strong. The next 3 months are kind of a blur to Johnny, but the definition of normal has really changed. Colleen's second stroke was caused by a lack of blood thinners in her system, and that another clot has caused this. The doctors inform us that not only does Colleen have muscular problems with this new stroke, she's also got her thalamus screwed up. And the thalamus is a gland in the middle of your brain. And if we say this is normal, and this is happy, Kids never write on the wall at home. Your normal and my normal, it goes like this. We get happy, we get sad, we get happy, we get sad. This is our normal zone. Colleen, because of her stroke, the thalamus stops. The thalamus is what keeps you in a smaller window. And now Colleen's thalamus has been toasted. So they told me to expect many more high swings and many more low swings. And this was true. And it's a great thing they told me this, because when Colleen would get sad and cry, you really had no idea what was going on sometimes. Sometimes it was something little would make her cry. We'd go to movies, and you always had to be careful that she needed to, when you could see it was a crying thing, we'd always have to coach her. Don't cry, just breathe, just breathe. But as time went on, she got her normal closer to being correct, but it had definitely changed her. They also tell Johnny that Colleen's going to laugh a lot. So don't think you're so funny that you can quit your job and become a comedian, because on the outside world you would starve. Colleen has to go through another round of ICU, normal hospital, and rehab, and then a rehab hospital. At this time, Colleen cannot walk, talk, or swallow. She cannot help with any of her daily activities. She only has slight movement in her left ankle. She still has a big smile and understands everything. Colleen has been allowed to go home several times for us to see what problems we would encounter. And a week before her release from the rehab hospital, we have a little meeting to discuss what difficulties we have encountered. Johnny says, "No big deal. We can do this." Then the social worker tells us that we cannot take Colleen home, that in the best interest of Colleen, that the hospital cannot release her to Johnny, and they will get a court order to stop him, that Johnny could never take care of her, that Johnny has no idea what it takes to care for someone in Colleen's condition. Johnny on the cheap puts up a little argument, but knows lawyers are time and money, so he has to accept their decision. Johnny starts doing some research, finds a nice new facility close to where Johnny works. Johnny is thinking, maybe in the long run, this is for the best. Johnny asks, "When we want to leave, what do we need to do? Can we just leave?" They look at each other. "Of course you can leave. It's not a prison." So we move into this new facility. Johnny spends most of the week there working and training the staff how to take care of Colleen and communicate with Colleen. Johnny thinks he has met and trained everyone. After spending 6 nights there, he decides to see how the staff does on their own, and Johnny goes home. When he returns the next morning, Colleen's room is empty. Johnny finds her across the hall and 3 doors down. Colleen is not crying when Johnny gets there, but as soon as she sees Johnny, the tears start flowing and she is a wailing. Colleen's roommate informs Johnny that she has been crying a lot. The roommate said she called the nurse and they did not know what she wants. While the roommate is explaining, Johnny starts to take care of Colleen, cleaning her up, and her eyes are so expressive. She just wants to go home and gives him the look, as if he has ever loved her, he needs to take her home. With her eyes, she threatens, if Johnny doesn't get her out of here, that Johnny is going to rot in hell. Some new nurse comes in. Johnny's asking, "Where's Betty? She was supposed to be here." "Oh, she called in sick." "Why isn't Judy here? She knows how to take care of Colleen." There was no running out of excuses. Johnny is livid. Johnny has to explain to Colleen that he needs a couple of days to get things ready at home. Colleen continues to visually just threaten Johnny. She wants out. But it takes a couple of days before they go home. Johnny finds the first of many home health aides. None are as good as Tracy. You can see her here in the background, sneaking in the door. Colleen's muscle tone is really good, allowing her to help with transfers from the wheelchair to the bed or to wherever, and make them somewhat easy. And her balance is also pretty good. Colleen is still working hard. Johnny has her standing in a walker one afternoon in the living room. Johnny is kind of showing her off, showing how she can stand. Johnny thinks she is okay and disappears for a minute. Then he hears tumbling noises coming from the living room. Colleen has fallen. Colleen says she's okay and refuses to get checked out. But after 2 hours of harassment, she gives in and gives permission to take her to the ER. She has a broken femur. More hospital time.
For the next couple of years, we have struggles, trials, and tribulations, but we just break them down little by little, item by item, one by one. And at the end of the day, we are just happy to be above ground. We just try to do our best every day. Some days our best is very good, and some days not so good. But it was our best for that day. Colleen still needs therapy every day to keep her muscles from just getting bound up. We try many things. A computer specially made for limited mobility. We hope somehow this will help. Colleen wants to and tries very hard, but she just does not have enough mobility to make this computer work. Johnny makes many things like this harness and barn door trolley system. It works good, but shortly after this, we find out you can buy a standard, which is much easier to get Colleen in and out of. We still try and get out as much as possible. In 2001, just before Christmas, we go to NYC for a family vacation. This is just after 9/11. We were watching the Today Show live with Tracy when this happened. We seen the second plane hit the building live. So when Colleen sees the site still has not been cleaned up because the investigation is still going on, her thalamus has no control to stop her from wailing. We walk by the fence with the flowers and the memorials, and the wailing begins again. How our journey to Panama begins. In February 2001, Johnny has a working gig in Marco Island, Florida. So Johnny on the cheap makes it a family vacation. This is when we discover Colleen loves the warmth. It is great medicine for her. While there, we do a little research on property cost, and Colleen wants waterfront. Johnny on the cheap says, "That is just not going to fit in our budget, dear." But Johnny realizes vacations from now on need to be in the winter and to a warmer climate. Late in 2001, Johnny talks to his coworker Dennis Pitt, who recently was in Costa Rica. Johnny asks if he thinks Johnny could take Colleen to Costa Rica. After some discussion, Dennis says, "I think so." This is early in the internet era. Johnny finds a place in Palmeiras, Costa Rica. It is halfway between San Jose and the ocean. Again, Colleen wants the ocean, but Johnny cannot find a place on the ocean and says, "When we get there, we will look for a place for the ocean for next year." If we go to Florida, it is $1,000 per week. This place is $1,000 for the month. You know what Johnny on the cheap wants to do, and he talks Colleen into it. So in February of 2002, we take our first trip to Central America. We stay at Bob's place for a month. He is a Canadian. His place has a pool in the center and is surrounded by side-by-sides, single-level buildings, and a bar area. All guests are North Americans, and most rent here long-term. We do some property investigation, but are just looking. We repeat our trip in 2003, 2004, and 2005. We have watched property values go up, 10% per year. At the end of our trip in 2005, Colleen has a little bit of a temper tantrum. She does not want to go back to the cold Wisconsin winter. Johnny guarantees her next year we will look more seriously for some property. Johnny wanted to go into partnership with Bob and buy half of Bob's business. It would have been easy for Johnny. Bob was always there. It had a great group of North Americans. Colleen said no to this idea. It was more up in the Highlands, and by now we have been to the beach too many times. She wants a beach house. In 2006, we returned to Bob's. Johnny is complaining at Bob's bar about how the cost of property has gone up so much. Tom, one of the guests, says, "There's a new flight to David, Panama that is much cheaper in Panama. There are many good government incentives for pensionados and good health care. The flights to David are only Monday, Wednesday, and Friday." He lays out a plan for us. There is a mountain there, 11,000 feet at its top. He says a lot of gringos live on the mountain top. He continues, you leave on Friday and do some looking around. Then Saturday, you go up one side of the mountain, and on Sunday, up the other side of the mountain. Fly back to Costa Rica on Monday. He says, as you go up the mountain, it gets cooler. The top is much cooler. You start in David and you work your way up the mountain. You pick what temperature you like. So we are off. We land in David. We get to the nicest hotel. A beer, poolside, is 35 cents. Johnny on the cheap is already liking this place, and there's no dipping. There's a much longer story here, but we will cut this short. It is hot and no breeze. Too hot for Johnny, but Colleen is loving it. Colleen's immobility and blood thinners always make her cold. She just loves the heat. It is the best medicine for her. Saturday morning we get up, we go up the mountainside, look around. At the top it is 60 degrees, cool, damp, and misting. Colleen says, no way we are moving here. Johnny is in agreement. We head down the mountain, looking around as we go. Sunday we do the same thing, but on the other side of the mountain. Finally, we compromise on a place halfway down the mountain. But you could tell Colleen was not the happiest. This was much better than a Wisconsin winter, but it is not the beach. Johnny says to Colleen, this really is not what you want. Her eyes light up. We were with a realtor, but he had no knowledge of beach property. So we get rid of him. Reading the paper, we do not see beach property for sale. So I say to Colleen, let's drive down to the ocean and see if we can find a farmer or someone to sell us some land. So off we go, down the mountain without a clue where we're going. We just knew the ocean was in that direction. There's not a lot of access to the beach, so we were lucky and eventually got to the beach. There was a hotel there, and they were also selling ocean lots. We got the grand tour, and it was getting late. We get back to our hotel, and we discuss our options. But Colleen was just all in. Let's get the lot. So we call the realtor, tell him our flight leaves at 10 in the morning. Can you have the paperwork ready by 7 in the morning? We will be there. And that was that. Colleen was happy. We now owned a big sandbox. We are not really sure what we did, but the payment schedule was easy, and when we return in 2007, if we did not like what we see, we could just walk away. We return in 2007, spend the month of February in the beach hotel. Colleen thinks she is in heaven. Johnny is okay with the heat because there is usually an 82-degree cool ocean breeze. We do not even use the AC, but we get the hotel to install screens for our room. We find a builder, but do not start. Johnny says, we need to sell our house first. We need to have a budget. We get our first offer. Johnny says, we should wait for a better offer. Colleen insists that we take this offer and get going. Johnny is not excited and not in any hurry. Let's just wait. Oh well, you already know where Johnny's manhood has disappeared years ago. So the house gets sold to the first offer and the builder gets kicked off. Okay, we lost 10 grand with the first builder. We just consider that a fee to allow us to find a better builder. And we did. There are a lot of stories here, but we end up moving to the Playa in November of 2008. This is the same time our last daughter graduates, so there is nothing holding us back. Colleen wanted to keep a home in Wisconsin, but earlier, Johnny on the cheap said, "You pick which house you want." Johnny said he could not keep up with all the work of having two houses. So the beach is our new home. Some think Johnny is the mastermind behind this move to Panama, but we had lived in that same house for 25 years. We'd built a barn. The girls helped Johnny dig a root cellar, along with Pat Janzer. This is the only house our kids had ever lived in. Johnny was very happy there. He had an orchard, a vineyard, huge strawberry, raspberry, rhubarb, asparagus patches. The move to Panama is all Colleen's doing. You already know Johnny's manhood has been gone for years. One big advantage to being in Panama is we had access to other medical treatments not available in the USA, not FDA approved. Colleen is given a vaccine from Switzerland that was given over a 6-month period that prevented her from getting urinary tract infections. We also found some pain medication to relieve Colleen's abdominal pain. The pain specialists in the USA had no clue how to treat this pain. Not that they didn't try, but they never found a solution. Not even morphine helped. But here we found Sertal Compuesto. Worked great, didn't even need a prescription. For work, Johnny becomes semi-retired / a seasonal commuter. We returned to Wisconsin for the next couple of summers, living in a hotel. This gets old, so in the summer of 2015, we buy an RV. We'll discuss this later.
She's laughing. Isn't it fun? I love this. This is one of my favorite things in the whole world.
Oh my.
Whoa!
What scares them?
Colleen, can you feel them? They're so, oh look, he's on your shoulder. Oh my gosh, you're covered with monkeys. They're so soft. Aren't they soft? Their little hands. Okay, I think we have to have another banana.
Oh, look at that.
That guy's got to clean his face off.
Where are they? Okay, let's put them over here. Oh my goodness.
Get a good look at your face. You're in trouble, Colleen.
You've got so many monkeys. Monkeys. Now you know what it means when they say more fun than a barrel of monkeys.
You know? Yeah. Papi.
Conmigo aquí.
Bueno, pero deja la bulla, pues deja la bulla.
Look at those soft little hands. Aren't they something? Oh, look. This is a sweet little guy.
Jump in.
Not me.
I do.
I would jump in, totally jump in. Oh, wow.
You know, if they're around, nothing's going to ever harm you.
They're amazing animals.
Okay, this is going to add to the trip value. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, don't push me. Wow. Wow. I like the music. No, there's 4 of them. I love the music.
I counted 7 of them at one time.
There's like 3 right there, and then they'll come up on the side.
When I went down to Mexico one time, they did the same thing in front of our boat for the longest time. Who's messing with who, hey? Who's in whose zoo here?
Yeah. Look, those two just jumped on top of each other. Right there. 5
like-
right there.
I think there's one little one here.
Scary to go over the top of this.
Okay, Colleen, I think we're going to back you up. Whoa, you've seen a good view there.
She's getting the best view. Oh, and you've got the best view. Better hope he doesn't stop suddenly, Mom.
They shut their own systems down. They'll actually just shut down their kidneys and their livers and everything. And I'm not sure
Incoming.
why they do it, but they do. But they can take months to die because their whole system is so slow.
Yep, yep.
So it could have been just removed from Panama City to here that did it. But having said that, there were 2 others that went to Volcan inside, whereas mine were living outside. They have boxes and shelter and that. But,
And the inside ones are doing
and the
fine?
inside ones are doing fine. But they are treated like babies.
Yeah.
They travel in the car,
Oh, yeah.
So the sloths, we've had parrots and successfully released all the parrots.
Hey. Smile. You gonna smile too, Rachel? What? Something just went down my back. Tap. Well, here he comes. Here he comes. He don't like me close to his hole. You know why? Uh-oh. In April 2010, for work, Johnny is helping out to start up an office in South China, in a city called Shenzhen, near Hong Kong. It is warm there, maybe similar to New Orleans. So Johnny and Colleen head to South China for almost a month. Let's fast forward to 2012. Because of other business opportunities, John and Colleen returned to China for almost all of 2012. Colleen travels everywhere with Johnny. At work, she stays in the office, watching a lot of movies and TV. When we go to customers, sometimes Colleen would come in, but usually she would wait in the car with the driver, Mr. Chen, a great guy who spoke great English. He picks us up and takes us to and from work every day. He drives us on vacations, comes with us. We had a good time with Mr. Chen. This is Alice. Most Chinese are also given an English name. This is for passport reasons because most Westerners can't read the hieroglyphics of Chinese, so they get an English name. We met Alice in a seaside park. She and her friend approached us and asked if she could practice speaking English with us. She wanted to know what we were doing there and many other questions. She asked if Johnny takes care of Colleen all the time. Johnny explains, we both take care of each other. Alice is a little perplexed with that answer. She explains it in Chinese to her friend. They both shake their heads, not understanding. Alice moves on with many questions. Then she asks if we could hire her for cleaning and helping with Colleen. And we think about it a while, but we eventually get back to her and we agree to terms and after 2 weeks of working / living with us, she explains, "Remember that first day in the park when you said you both take care of each other? I did not understand. I thought my English was not good. But now, after 2 weeks, I see you take care of her and she takes care of your heart." It was very touching, the way she said it in her Chinese accent. Hugo was another person that we made a lasting friendship and impressions with. This is Apple, Hugo's wife. Their oldest daughter, Maria. Our oldest daughter's name is Rachel Marie. And their youngest daughter, Colleen. You know who she was named after. Hugo was a co-worker with Johnny, so we spent a lot of time together trading stories of what it's like to live in each other's country. While in China, Colleen also receives stem cell injections, a treatment not available in the USA, but made from machines that came from the USA. It was a pretty pricey endeavor, and Colleen wanted to have another treatment, but it was very expensive, so we didn't see much benefit from it, so we didn't get another treatment. Some other quick little stories while we were in China. The country's very handicap accessible. This is a restaurant, probably had 200 stairs up to the top, and there's no elevator, no escalator. They just call up to the top, and they send 4 dishwashers down, come down and pick Colleen and take her to the top. Another little story, no pictures for this, but when we were looking for apartments, we looked at many, and we picked out one, and it was kind of depressing because we got rejected because they didn't like the way Colleen looked, and they didn't like our chi, is what we were told. When we got home, they called us back and said, you know, we're sorry, you can come here, you guys will be okay. We reluctantly told them, we don't think your chi is good enough for us now, so we didn't take that apartment. But one thing in the USA, you can't do that. Last little thing, we didn't drink much PBR in China, but you could buy it. It's made in China. It was made down the street from where we lived. On our way home from China, we stopped in Korea for visits at LG's world headquarters and at Samsung City. These complexes are huge, like a city by themselves. To enter, you have to go through a very intense security inspection. It makes TSA seem basic. Computers are not even allowed in or out. The little building behind us is just for security. There are many conference rooms. Usually this is where suppliers are met. But we needed to evaluate some equipment, so we have to go through security. Colleen was let in without much inspection, and the guys at Samsung wanted us to have a file, so they give it to Colleen on an illegal thumb drive, and she has to smuggle it out. No problem, Colleen gets it out. This story would always put a smile on her face. She could now add industrial spy to her resume. One night, we went out for dinner with Mr. Kim and his wife to an old Korean restaurant. We all sat on the floor. The conversation led out that Colleen's father was in a Korean war. We were in Korea. They call it a war, not a conflict. Anyways, Mr. Kim is very thankful for Colleen's dad's service. There's a longer story, but Mr. Kim stands up, tells the whole restaurant about Colleen's dad being in the war. The whole place stands up, clapping and saluting Colleen. Okay, at this time, I didn't know Colleen's dad was stationed in Germany. Okay, 2015, we buy the RV in Wisconsin. Towards the end, this is towards the end of summer. For the fall, we drove out to Rachel. We parked it in Reno, the end of 2015. From there, we would fly to Panama for the winter, and then in the spring, we return here and go the other direction. And we'd end up by my brother in Orlando, and from Orlando, then we'd fly back to Panama for the winter. In the spring, again, we'd turn back to Orlando, and we'd swing back and forth like a pendulum every year. The RV was great. It allowed us to go so many different places that we never could go before. We went to the Fenny Farm party out here. We went to Albany, New York for the National Muscular Brain Center. And as long as we were here, we went all the way out to Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, Quebec, Montreal, stopped by Niagara Falls, visited our friends, the Cunninghams, took the RV across the Lake Michigan on a ferry. We just had a great time. Made a special trip out and visited Andrea Gehring for her wedding. Visited Vanessa several times. For the one time was for the eclipse. It's pretty cool. We drove all the way out to LA to visit Colleen's Aunt Chris. So we went to the end of Highway 1, Key West. We really had a great time with the RV. Best thing we ever bought. What made the RV great was that we had it just tripped out, special for Colleen. We had her stander in there, we had her special air mattress bed in there, her suction unit, G-tubes, meds, all the extra things that we needed was all right there. I didn't have to think every time we packed up to go somewhere because it was already in the bus and we just had to take off. This is Wisconsin. This is the state where Colleen and I are from. Colleen's from a city here called Grafton. I'm from Hartford. This is where we lived pretty much the last 25 years before we moved to Panama. And this is our last summer here in Wisconsin. We didn't know it was going to be our last summer, but we've seen a lot of the USA and a lot of beautiful country. And some of the most beautiful country we remember is up in this area. So we kind of wanted to go there. People were saying Nova Scotia was so pretty, and you know, upper state New York is beautiful, and Maine is beautiful, a lot of beautiful places, but we wanted to go back here. So we stop in the Wisconsin Rapids area, visit our friend Steve Park, head up that way. But we get up to here, the Apostle Islands. This is the shore of Lake Superior. It never gets warm. But we go out on these islands here, and I'll show you some of the shoreline, and it's just beautiful. There's also a lot of waterfalls in this area. We'll show you those at the end, kind of in a separate chronological. We did go up into here looking at some waterfalls, but most of the falls are here.
So then we returned back. We stopped by our friend, the Heimrels, Gunnar and Cheryl, and then eventually end up back here for the last month, visiting with family and friends. Then we head out to Madison, where our daughter's training for the full Ironman. So she wanted to see the bike course, so we went out there and saw the bike course with her. We did a little camping here for a couple of days. Then on to Potassi to the National Brewery Museum, and then out to Colorado. So it's now the early part of August. I'm going to say like maybe the 7th or 10th. We leave Wisconsin, and Colleen's sister, Vanessa, she's having a family reunion here in Breckenridge. Her 4 daughters, I'm going to say her 10 grandkids. I don't know how many she's got exactly, but there's a tribe, all their significant others. We're going to meet here on the 16th through the 19th. It's a long weekend. Have a family reunion. Some other people were coming. So we come into town. We stop here this year now because it's late in the summer. We're going to park our RV in the Denver airport instead of in the Orlando airport. So we come here and we're going to check this place out. It's a good thing we came a couple days early because our bus wouldn't fit inside their garage. We scramble around, takes us a day. There's no other indoor spots available. We found one out of town a little bit, a half hour from the airport. We take it, and we're happy. We camp here for a couple days. We go across through into here and the road's real curvy, real pretty, but it's a canyon snake road. So we stay at the Golden Gate Canyon State Park one night. That was real nice. Then we take one of these other roads. Google takes us down a dirt road. It's like a 1-lane road. I'm on it with the bus, just praying nobody else comes. But we make it down. We make it all the way to Breckenridge that day. It was late. It was a Thursday. We had a great time here. We'll show you some pictures. Maybe I'll interrupt here for a little bit. But Sunday comes, we have to leave. Everybody says goodbye. We proceed to spend the rest of this month. We're going to leave Denver Airport September 1. So it's now the 19th, so we got like 10 days to tour around the state. So we leave Denver, come down to Colorado Springs. A lot of nice things to see here. There's Garden of the Gods, Seven Falls, Pikes Peak. So we spent a couple days here. We spent it at the Cheyenne Mountain State Park campground here. Then we drove down to Canyon City, where my buddy Carter Luther owns a motorhome park. So we surprised him, didn't let him know we were coming. But he has a very nice motorhome park. Lets us stay there 2 nights for free. We hang out. It was a good time. But Carter recommends that we travel the road over here to Durango. He says this is some of the prettiest country, this prettiest road in the state. So we make that journey, stay one night here at the national park, drive through here. It's just gorgeous canyon road. And we get up to Delta, start heading this way. Colleen's not her normal self. It's getting late in the night. We find a national park in Redstone. We spend the night of the August 29th here. Colleen's not herself, and I go to feed her, and she feed her and give her medicine, and she vomits it back up. And it's not the most unusual thing for Colleen to do that. It's not. It's pretty rare, but she was a little bit lethargic. I'm thinking she's got, a urinary tract infection or something. I don't know what's going on, but I wasn't overly concerned. It's been like this before. But we wake up in the morning, and I can get Colleen out of bed to the couch, but it's a struggle. Normally, Colleen, she can put weight bearing on one of her feet, and I kind of push her other feet ahead, and we just kind of walk like that to the couch. But this day, she's kind of like a noodle, and I'm doing all I can just to get her to the couch. I get her to the couch, feed her and medicate her again. She throws that up again, and I didn't hardly give her anything. So I wasn't concerned last night, but this morning I'm overly concerned. I asked the ranger, where's the best hospital? He says, well, go up here to Glenwood Springs. So I get Colleen packed into the bus. I lay her down on the couch and put 3 seat belts around her. I couldn't get her. I tried getting her to the chair, but that wasn't happening. So I strap her into the couch. I normally would call Rachel here, but we were up in the mountains. I couldn't get a signal. So the next day on the 30th, we leave. As soon as I could get a signal, I call Rachel. I'm driving. Say, hey, Rachel, la, la, la. Mom's not her normal self. I tell her what's going on. She says, pull over to the side of the road, dial 911, and that's the best you can do. And I said, well, I've already got her strapped in. I got Google Maps telling me where the closest hospital is, and I think I'm just going to go there. She says, well, if you think that's best, go for it. So we follow Google Maps. It leads us into the back of the hospital where the dumpsters are, and I'm like, is this a hospital? So we find the front of the hospital. We come around. I come in the reverse way. There's like the parking lot's a far way away, so everything's valet parking. I'm coming in the wrong way, and they're chasing me out of there. I say, where's the emergency room? They point right around the corner, right over there. Can't you see it? I'm like, no, I'm not from around here. I don't know what's going on. So I pull into the ER parking lot. I run in and say, hey, man, my wife's in my RV. I tell them what's going on. I says, I can't pick her up. I need a couple more people to pick her up. I get her wheelchair out of the bus. They get her into the emergency room. I tell them again what's going on to the doctors. They're trying to do some tests on her, some blood work, get some IVs in her. But her veins are always a hard stick. So they can't stick her. They decide, let's just do, I believe it's a CAT scan. They're just going to do a 3D image of her brain to see if they suspect, they didn't tell me, but they suspect she's having another stroke. So they do the scan. They come back in. They stop all tests. They say, Mr. Hahn, come on over here. I told them I wanted to see the scans. I've seen them before. So they say, come here, look at this. And I could tell right away that there's more white in there than there's supposed to be. And they say, we're going to stop all the tests. And there's nothing we can do for your wife. her blood's bleeding, her brain's bleeding out, that the fluids are going to go down her spine and pinch her spine off, and she's going to die, and there's nothing they can do for it. So this is early on the morning of the 30th. So I call Rachel and Bridget. Rachel's in Reno out this way. Bridget's in Chicago this way. They both fly to Denver, and they drive out to Colorado Springs. They get there just before dark, or no, after dark. I would say they got there about 8 o'clock at night. Vanessa's sister, she lives up here in Wyoming. She drives down. She's a 5.5-hour car ride away. So her dearest family is close to her. It's Valley View Hospital. Nurse who works there like 40 years, she comes in and tells us, you're kind of like at the hippie hospital. Colleen makes it through the 30th, the 31st. I think on the 31st, I was gone. I left for a little while. I went to get some food or something. They gave massages to whoever wanted one. A masseuse came in. I think she gave it to Colleen too. And they came in with the essential oils. Colleen was like right at home. The view at this place is like super nice. There's a huge window overlooking a huge mountain. People are parasailing off of this mountain. It's just a beautiful place. So Colleen makes it through the 31st that night. We wake up September 1st in the morning. I'll say like at 7 o'clock. Everybody's got a great night's sleep. Everybody's feeling as good as you could feel. Johnny says to Colleen, we got to move you. This place is too nice. You're never going to leave this place. You're too tough. And she hung in there for a while. But I'd say about 10 o'clock that morning, the swelling went down her back, down her spine, pinched it off. So at like 10 o'clock, she took her last breath. Everything was peaceful, quiet, no pain. It was a good way to go if you have to go. We spent a lot of time talking to UCLA Medical Center. They wanted her brain for studying. So Colleen donated all of her body to science. What they didn't use or couldn't use, none of it was transplanted. It was all given for science. And then what they couldn't use, they gave back to us. And the rest of her remains were cremated. And she ended up in Neosho at St. Bartholomew Cemetery, the place that was named after my grandfather. If you were paying attention, not my grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, 6 generations ago, was his cemetery. So that's where Colleen and I are going to be buried.
Well, if you made it this far, congratulations, and thank you for caring enough to watch Colleen's stories. Don't be mad if you had a story with Colleen that you did not see. It probably ended up on the editor's floor. This show is long enough. Maybe we'll make the full-length featured film. If you weren't happy with your investment of time to watch this, I'm sorry. But I really did not make this for you. I made this hoping someday Colleen might have a grandchild that might be interested in knowing about Grandma. By the time any grandkids are old enough to ask, I will probably be gone as well. There's an upcoming full-featured movie version of this, takes place in the year 2035, that has our kids showing this video to their kids just before they unplug Johnny. Okay, back to reality. I need to give some thanks. I owe some special thanks to these two for being the best medicine Colleen ever had. Thank you more than I will ever be able to say. You meant the world to her and always will. And to me too. Thanks also to my old employers and old coworkers that helped us through some trying times and that covered my butt many times. A sincere thank you. To our families, there's no way we could have ever had such a great life together without all of your help, love, and support. Thank you all so very much. For all of our friends, neighbors, and the strangers that were always there to help us, you touched our lives so deeply. Some think we were cheated out of part of life. Sometimes I wondered if this was true. But I learned at a young age from my brother Michael and my sister Karen that passed away at a very young age, and more recently from my brother Scott that also passed away too young, that every day above ground is just a blessing. Every time I go past the cemetery, I am thankful for being able to just drive by. Some think life is not fair. Well, that is life. Get used to it. We have been in enough hospital to see that life is not fair. But play the hand you have the best you can. We were not dealt the best hand, but we took our pair of twos and played them like we had a full house and made the best out of every day. We would wake up every day, put our smiles and our happiness on, and it was our job the rest of the day to protect our happiness. Sometimes that meant an extra hug or doing something we did not really want to do because we knew in the end it would protect our happiness. Or maybe we just bought our way out of something. Happiness was our guide. Don't let people take it from you. Some think it was difficult for me, but living with Colleen was far from the top of my list of things that were difficult. I was so blessed to have her teach me so much about life, love, and what it is really important. She knew how to make me smile even when I would get upset. She would straighten me out. She would see I was mad and just laugh at me as if, really? You are going to let that take your happiness from you? I would just smile back at her and say, you're right. Go over and get my hug. I just loved her smile. If you remember the thalamus story from earlier on, she was my thalamus for my life. She kept me from getting too wild and crazy and also kept me from getting too boring. This was not an easy responsibility, but she did it very, very well. Thank you all. Bye-bye. Love you all.